Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a Saturday afternoon here in suburban Chicago. It's a cloudy day, which is not all that uncommon for mid-January. I was just talking to my wife about how the weather is colder than it has been this January, but it's nothing like it usually is in January here in Chicago. This is one of the first days in all of January that I've had to wear my actual winter coat versus wearing like the jacket that I wear in late autumn. And I'm wearing mittens today, but like the last week, I haven't had any hand warming stuff, and I've had my hands in my pockets, but it hasn't been unbearable. So it's a mild winter, to put it lightly. And that's the kind of delightful commentary you can expect here on Pick Up and Deliver Season 6. That's right, episode 501 means that we're beginning Season 6. That means I've been doing this podcast for 5 years. 5 full years. I'm starting my 6th year of this podcast. So I guess the first thing to say is thank you to all of you who have been reaching out. I appreciated the comments over in the Pick Up and Deliver Guild about how the podcast is going and what you like hearing. It sounds kind of like you like hearing what I've been doing. Most of you like when I change things around a little bit, but you also like the regular segments. And most importantly, because the podcast is 15 or 20 minutes, if you aren't enjoying one, by the time you get it through your head like, oh man, I'm not enjoying this episode, it's over. So there's that. So my plan is to continue kind of on the path I've been following. We may try a few new episode types this year, as I always do, if I think of them. And there's plenty of short and long reviews to get to. So yeah, but I thought I would start with what I do is my yearly tradition. I stole this from somewhere and I don't remember where, but I remember hearing a podcast or seeing a video. It might be inspired a little bit by Rado, Richard Ham, YouTube personality and podcaster. And he plays a lot of games, as I do. And he always does a best of whatever the year on Christmas Day at the end of that year. So like, you know, at the end of 2022, he did a best of 2022 list. But he always starts it with a big asterisk and says, I'm going to come back in like April and update this with the rest of the 2022 games that I wanted to play and hadn't gotten a chance to yet, to see if any of those worked their way into his top 10, is what he did. And I feel like I saw someone else do this as well, but I have for the last couple years, if you're a regular listener, you know this, been doing a top 5 of the year. I usually do 5 rather than 10 because I feel like to do top 10, I should have played quite a few games, and most of the time I've played somewhere in the neighborhood of, well, I feel like your top whatever should be maybe 10% of the overall thing. So like to do a top 10 games that you enjoy, you should probably have played 100 games. I mean, whatever, I don't care. That's sort of a bar for me. So I tend to do top 5. Also, it's a 15-minute podcast, 20-minute podcast. So less time to do a top 10 unless I break it up. So all that is to say, this episode is the top 5 games of 2021. So what I do is I looked back at all of the games I had played. What I did is I went on Board Game Geek and I did an advanced search and I had it list all the games that are marked as officially published in 2021. And then I scrolled through those and I made a list of all of the games that I had played that were published in 2021 that land in the top 1,500 games of Board Game Geek. I say 1,500 because I went through 15 screens of games and there's 100 on a screen. So it's possible that there are some games that I played in 2021 that would have made this list, but didn't get here because they didn't land in the top 1,500 games of 2021 on Board Game Geek. Sorry about that. If you published one of those games and I didn't list it here, my apologies. So I thought what I would do today is I will share my top 5 games of 2021. And then next time I will do what I think some listeners enjoy more, actually, my superlatives episode, where I pick out other games that didn't make my top 5 and I give them awards that are focused more around specifics of the game. So superlatives, the best, whatever. If you're curious about that, you can go to next time's show notes or search up best of on the Pick Up and Deliver page notes over on rattleboxgames.com, and you will find my superlative episodes. They're usually close to, if not back to back with the best of games episodes. Okay. So without further ado, I reviewed the top 1,500 games on Board Game Geek that have been made in 2021. Of those, it turned out I had played 45 games. So I considered 45 games to pick these top 5 games. While I was doing that, I picked out probably 10 or 11 that I thought, these are pretty good. I think these could make the top 5. And then I whittled that down to 8 that I thought were for sure in my top 5. And then I used the PubMeeple ranking engine to figure out my final list. And this is, and then I ended up switching one around. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But so what I'm going to do is talk through my top 5 and tell you why each game made the list. So to start with, number 5, Dice Miner. Dice Miner is from Atlas Games. This game was an instant hit for me. I sat down to play it at Origins, and it, like halfway through my play, in my head I was like, I gotta buy this game, and I was checking to make sure they had enough copies that they wouldn't sell out while I was playing. It's a really tight game, easy to teach, maybe a 5-minute teach. There's enough decisions to think about that you actually have some thought to do. There's some randomness, so while skill can guide you, you can also have new players who don't have a lot of skill do really well, just, if they get lucky, and you can always blame the dice if you do badly. The way the game works, it's a dice drafting game. You have this little mountain, and all the dice are piled on the mountain. And on your turn, you're going to go in and take one of the dice off the mountain. You have to take it from the peak of the mountain. So at the beginning of the game, there's only one die available, but as more dice get taken, there's more peaks, sometimes 2 or even 3 peaks available to you. But they also have, every die has one, there's like 5 different colors. Every die has a face that's a beer, and the beer is the thing that actually makes the game really interesting. So it's a set collection game, so different dice score in different ways depending which ones you get. So it's about getting combinations of dice that are going to score well for you. And the thing with the beer is that each die has one face. One of the 6 faces is a beer icon, and if you draft a die with a beer on it, then on your next turn, or any subsequent turn, you usually do it your next turn, but whatever, you can take the die that has a beer on it and you cheers someone. That's how we always play. We just say cheers, and you roll the die toward another player and say, hey spouse, here's a beer, and you roll the die toward them. Whatever side comes up when you roll it, that's the side they get, and then they get that die into their collection. And then you, as the player, get to take 2 dice from the mountain. And more importantly, you don't have to take the 2 dice from the top of the mountain. You can take them from the sides. And it's this taking from the sides that really opens up your decision space and allows for some very compelling play. And because every different type of die has a beer face on it, there's plenty of beers to borrow from the mountain. And sometimes when you roll a beer to another player, it comes up as a beer again, and then they'll get to do the same thing. Like I said, there's a variety of different mechanisms in play. It's set collection. There's a little bit of push your luck in terms of you can get some rerolls, but not a ton. And so you may have a die that's good but not great, or is actively bad. And so you could re-roll it, and it sometimes will get better, and sometimes it'll actually get worse. It's a lot of fun. Dice Miner might have been my most played game on the tabletop, or one of them. I played it 10 times last year, and it was great. Or I've played it 10 times since I bought it at Origins, and it might have been 2022 that I bought it at Origins. No, I bought it in 2021, but it's great and well worth checking out if you get a chance. That's Dice Miner, my number 5 game of 2021. So number 4 game, I wrestled with this one a little bit because I almost didn't include it because I've only played it once, and this is Boon Lake. This is the Alexander Pfister game. It's his follow-up to some of his more controversial games. I think in order it comes after Cloud Age and after Maracaibo. It is the next sort of big chunky game like Maracaibo. It uses a time track mechanism with this river, and you're always going down the river, getting bonuses as you move down, and you're building things. The big thing is in the story, there's this long ago occupied land that everyone has died from and has been empty for a long time, and you and your people are going to settle it. And so the game very specifically sort of sets up a narrative in which you are not colonizing. There are not people there to be colonized against. Instead, it is about settling, which, that small fiction is helpful in terms of thinking about what's going on in the game. I like that quite a bit. So from that perspective, The game itself has a lot of really interesting mechanisms. There's a sort of engine building aspect to it. There are these bonuses that you can get. There are these cards you can get. There's interlocking elements that work really well. I thought the gameplay itself was very compelling, and I really enjoyed the deep meatiness of it. I think probably the thing keeping it at number 4 as opposed to raising it higher is that I've only played it the once. It was pretty heavy. And while my wife did like it, we did not get it back out, which is definitely my fault, because that means if I get it out again now, I'm going to have to relearn it and reteach it. And I don't know if she liked it enough to get it out again. It might have been a little too complicated for her, but more just because, I'm not sure it isn't, because she certainly engages with other really complicated games without too much trouble. So that's number 4, Boon Lake. I really like it. Looking forward to playing it some more. Probably the reason it's not higher is I just didn't get it to the table as much. All right, on to my number 3 game. Number 3 is another of these games that uses entwined drafting. This is where you have multiple things in the market, but they're connected, and you have to take both of them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I think this game either was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres or it won the Spiel des Jahres in 2022 in Germany. This is Cascadia. Cascadia was developed by the Flat Out team and designed by Randy Flynn, I believe. In this game, you are building a arrangement of tiles, and each set of tiles scores differently based on what animals you've placed on it. Your goal over the course of the game is to develop those tiles in a way that you are doing the best you can to score from those different scoring arrangements. Like I said, the entwined drafting is the part of the game that feels really compelling. This idea that you have these two things and you might not want to take them both, or they might not ideally fit what you're looking for, but if you want to get the best score, you can. It's relatively easy to teach, although harder than you think because of the 5 different scoring conditions. That part can be a little annoying. Nonetheless, it's a fun game to play and really compelling 45-minute teach. Very enjoyable, beautiful art, fun theme, these different animals. It's a game we really liked playing quite a bit and have enjoyed many times. That's Cascadia, my number 3 game of 2021. My number 2 game of 2021, like my number 4 game, is a game that I've only played a handful of times. I mean, the number 4 game, Boon Lake, I'd only played once. This game I've also only played once on the table, but it's also available on Yucata, and I'm on my 4th game of it there. So I've played this a little bit more. This is the Vladimir Suchý intertwined systems, piling bonuses upon bonuses and working out the best way to cascade benefit to benefit game, Messina 1347. Now, this game is right in my wheelhouse. It's one of my favorite designers. It is exactly the right level of crunch for the kind of game I like to do. It's the kind of choices that I like, as opposed to like Vital Lacerda, where you have slightly higher level of interdependence, where if you haven't done steps A, B, C, and D, you won't be able to do F or E. Whereas Vladimir Suchý, it seems to be like you need to make sure you've done A and B in order to do C. It's a little less system dependent, but there are lots of really interesting interlocking systems that make for very satisfying play. Thematically, you are a landowner helping people escape the plague in Messina, where it arrives in 1347. Within the gameplay itself, it's a little more abstracted, but you're gathering these different types of workers to your estate, and they are helping build up your estate and build up your resources so that you can send them back to the city and they can repopulate it after the plague has been eradicated. It's a really fun game, very thinky, really neat set of mechanisms, both between the action selection and the resources you need to be able to take spaces. The choice over, like, do I take a few penalties and get these juicy spaces even if I don't have the stuff, or do I delay my turns in order to get protection, but then maybe I miss out on some of the better spaces because I'm trying to get these bonuses. The randomized nature of the way things come out means that it's a tactical puzzle. You have to figure out how to solve each sort of strategic question every round, and from that, I think it's great. So that's Messina 1347, not the newest Vladimir Suchý game, but the 2021 Vladimir Suchý game, designed with another designer, and I forgot to say I don't remember his name, but it was a delight, and I recommend. So before I get to my number 1 game, I have 3 honorable mentions. These are the other 3 games that I put into the Pub Meeple game selection engine, and that did not make the top 5. And these are Nanga Parbat, which is an excellent 2-player game in which you are setting up, it's sort of light area control where you're setting up chains of things on the board and you get points for the chains that you've done. You're also collecting different animals and trying to think about what your opponent will do and anticipate what they're doing. A really nice back and forth game. Nanga Parbat, I like that a lot. Rolling Realms, the roll and write from Jamey Stegmaier that he made during the COVID lockdown and then published subsequently in 2021. It's a really neat game with variable score conditions. There's one card for each game made by Stonemaier Games, and you get to you use 9 of the cards for each game, and so there's a really nice mix of things available to you. I also really like the way that each game will be different because of those 9 different options. I think and then I've been buying the packs as well, so there's additional cards for different games. So you might have, like in my set of Rolling Realms, I think I have 12 or 13 different realm cards available now, and you're only going to play with 9 of them in a game. So as he goes on and continues publishing these bonus packs, completionists like me will end up with this game that has an incredible diversity. It'll be almost like Libertalia, where you have a big deck of 20 or 30 cards and you're only going to use 9 of them in a game. So I really like that. And then finally, the third game. So these 3 are not in any particular order. And I highlight that because the third game that I have here is Riverside. Now, Riverside is the newest roll and write from the team that made Trails of Tucana, particularly Christian Ostby and Eric Amundsen or Elif Amundsen. And the delightful part about Riverside, it is, like I said, a roll and write where you're deciding how to use a set of dice that's shared on the table, and you're choosing a variety of different cascading bonuses. I really like Riverside. It's a little hard to teach, and when I did the Pub Meeple ranking engine, Riverside came out as my 5th choice. So it was almost my 5th choice instead of Dice Miner. However, I had to put Dice Miner in my top 5 just because the teachability of that game exceeds the teachability of Riverside. I find Riverside is actually pretty hard to teach and gets in the way of showing it to other people. And so with that consideration, Riverside got bumped down into the 3 honorable mentions instead of Dice Miner. So we're just about out of time, and I suspect that you know what my number 1 game of 2021 is. In part, it's because it's the same number 1 game that many, many people had for 2021. That's right. It is the zoo building card management game, Ark Nova. Honestly, it feels a little trite to say Ark Nova is my favorite game of 2021 because it feels like that's what everybody said, but it's really good. It feels, anybody who can't see the comparison to Terraforming Mars just isn't paying attention. It feels very Terraforming Mars-like, from the large deck of cards that you're working with to the tags that allow for different kinds of benefits and give you a kind of engine building feel. But it also has this delightful array that you're building in without the competition of having to finish it before someone else takes the spot that you're in, where in Terraforming Mars it's a shared board. Ark Nova, you are working on your own board, which I find quite delightful. The theme is fantastic, fun zoos with cute animals. And then, most important, the action selection system is really neat. The difficult trade-off that says you can only upgrade 4 of your 5 actions. So one of the actions is not going to get upgraded, and you have to decide which one am I willing to go without. The tight race for the university affiliations and the university affiliations and the zoo affiliations on other continents is delightful as well, and to get those cascading bonuses. And then often the difference between doing well and not doing well sometimes comes down to, did you get the cards you needed? And while generally you can still do very well even if you didn't get the cards you needed, you can also kind of blame them if you had a bad game, because if you didn't get the cards you needed, well, that's just how it went. Ark Nova is great. I really have enjoyed it. I've played it a handful of times. I'm looking forward to playing it more this year. So that is my top game of 2021, and that brings me to the end of this episode. Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what are your top games of 2021. What did I leave off? What would you put is better than one of the games I put? Let me know. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine one. Bye-bye. And that's the kind of exciting things you can, that's the kind of exciting commentary you can expect here on Pick Up and Deliver Season 5. Welcome to Season 5. Wait, Season 6? Okay, let's try that again.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.